For decades, the world of elite sports has repeated the same quiet belief. Size wins championships. Height, reach, muscle, and mass have long been treated as prerequisites for greatness. At an international training camp just months before the Olympics, one respected coach would say those words out loud. "They're talented," he said casually, "but Filipinos are simply too small to reach the finals." The statement barely made headlines, but what followed would rewrite expectations, silence experts, and leave an Olympic arena stunned. The coach was Daniel Whitmore, a legendary Olympic trainer, known for producing medalists in combat sports and athletics. His athletes were tall, explosive, and physically intimidating. During a media session, he was asked about Southeast Asian contenders. Whitmore praised their discipline but dismissed their chances. "Heart matters," he said, "but physics always wins." Cameras captured his confident smile. To most viewers, it sounded logical. To Filipino athletes watching from home, it felt painfully familiar. In a modest sports complex in Laguna, a national training team was finishing their final session of the day. Sweat soaked the mats. Bruised legs dragged toward the locker room. Someone replayed the interview on a phone. No one spoke at first. These athletes had heard versions of that statement their entire lives, from scouts, sponsors, even rival competitors. Too short, too light, too fragile. Yet they were here, training for the Olympics, carrying not just their sport, but a nation's quiet defiance. At the center of the team was Marco Reyes, a 24-year-old athlete competing in a weight-class combat sport. At 5'6", Marco had been underestimated since childhood. Coaches once told his parents to redirect him to academics. Opponents smirked during weigh-ins. Yet Marco had something harder to measure: speed, timing, and an instinctive understanding of distance. He didn't overpower opponents. He outthought them. But the Olympics were different. This was a world stage, and doubt followed him like a shadow. Marco's journey had never been smooth. He trained in outdated facilities, sharing equipment and stretching mats with tape holding them together. While foreign competitors flew business class to international meets, Marco fundraised online to cover airfare. But adversity had sharpened him. His conditioning was relentless, his technique precise. Every movement was calculated, every strike efficient. Still, whispers lingered. Even within the federation, some questioned whether sending smaller athletes abroad was a mistake. As Olympic qualifiers began, media coverage favored taller, heavier-looking competitors. Analysts praised reach advantages and power metrics. Filipino athletes were described as scrappy and energetic, polite code for limited expectations. Daniel Whitmore repeated his stance during a televised segment. "They'll fight bravely," he said, "but they won't reach the finals." The statement circulated again, louder this time. Screenshots spread. Comment sections ignited. Pressure mounted. Inside the training camp, the coaching staff made a decision. Instead of responding publicly, they adjusted strategy. Conditioning drills became faster. Sparring emphasized angles and footwork. Strength training focused on explosive efficiency rather than bulk. The philosophy was simple. If size was their weakness, precision would be their weapon. Marco embraced it fully. Every night, he studied footage of taller opponents, mapping patterns, identifying moments of imbalance others overlooked. When the Olympic qualifiers began, expectations were low. Marco's first opponent towered over him, drawing cheers during introductions. Commentators predicted a short match. But as the opening seconds unfolded, something shifted. Marco moved like water, slipping strikes, closing distance, scoring clean points. The crowd grew quieter. By the final round, the taller athlete looked confused, chasing shadows. Marco won by decision. Analysts called it an upset, but Marco didn't celebrate. He simply bowed and walked off. The wins continued. Each match followed a similar pattern. Opponents started confidently, then grew frustrated. Marco's footwork dismantled reach advantages. His timing neutralized power. He wasn't overpowering anyone. He was dismantling them. Slowly, headlines changed tone. Filipino fighter advances again. Still, skepticism remained. He won't last, experts said. The finals are different. Daniel Whitmore watched on the sidelines, arms crossed, expression unreadable. As the tournament progressed, injuries mounted across teams. Bigger athletes struggled with endurance. Weight cuts took their toll. Marco, however, seemed to grow sharper with each match. His recovery was faster, his movements cleaner. Coaches from other nations began paying attention. Quiet conversations started near the mats. "He's not strong," one whispered, "but he's always in the right place." The semi-final bout drew international viewership. Marco faced a reigning world champion nearly a foot taller. Analysts unanimously predicted his elimination. Whitmore, interviewed before the match, reiterated his belief. "Skill can only take you so far," he said. "Eventually, size wins." When the match began, Marco absorbed early pressure. Then, midway through the second round, he adjusted. One angle change. One perfectly timed counter. The champion faltered. The arena erupted. Marco won the semi-final by technical decision. Silence followed. Commentators struggled for words. Social media exploded. Clips spread globally. Filipino communities across time zones stayed awake, replaying the final moments again and again. Marco had reached the Olympic finals. The same stage experts said was impossible. The narrative had cracked, but the ultimate test remained. The final match was scheduled for prime time. Marco's opponent was everything stereotypes celebrated: tall, muscular, dominant. Whitmore was in his corner. Cameras captured their warm-up. The contrast was striking. Marco looked calm, almost serene. As he stepped onto the mat, he touched the edge lightly, grounding himself. He didn't look at the crowd. He looked forward. From the opening bell, the match was intense. Marco absorbed pressure, but never retreated blindly. Every step backward was measured, every entry precise. The taller athlete attempted to impose strength, but Marco refused to stay in range. The rounds were close. The crowd leaned forward. This wasn't dominance. It was chess played at full speed. In the final round, fatigue revealed truth. The larger athlete slowed. His movements widened. Marco saw it instantly. He accelerated, not recklessly, but decisively. Clean exchanges, sharp counters, controlled aggression. When the final buzzer sounded, both athletes stood still, breathing hard. No one celebrated. No one was sure. The judges took their time. The arena was silent. Marco stared at the floor. Whitmore stared straight ahead. Then the decision was announced. Marco Reyes, winner by unanimous decision. For a second, the world seemed to pause. Then the arena erupted. Marco dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. He hadn't just won gold. He had shattered an assumption repeated for generations. Cameras found Daniel Whitmore moments later. His expression wasn't angry, it was stunned. In a post-match interview, he spoke slowly. "I was wrong," he admitted. "I underestimated what intelligence, preparation, and adaptability can overcome." It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement. And in elite sports, that mattered. Back in the Philippines, celebrations erupted, streets filled with cheers. Young athletes watched the replay on small screens, wide-eyed. Coaches replayed the match frame by frame. Something fundamental had shifted. Size was no longer destiny. It was just one variable among many. Marco returned home quietly. He avoided grand speeches. When asked about Whitmore's comment, he shrugged. "People see what they expect to see," he said. "I just focus on what I could control." His humility resonated as strongly as his victory. International federations took notice. Training philosophies evolved. Data analysts revisited assumptions. Smaller athletes were no longer filtered out early. Scouting reports changed language. Speed, adaptability, and decision-making gained weight alongside physical metrics. Critics argued the win was an exception, but exceptions change systems. They force reevaluation. And Marco's run wasn't luck. It was repeatable. Other Filipino athletes followed, reaching podiums, semifinals, finals. The narrative weakened with every result. Years later, Whitmore referenced a match during a coaching seminar. "That final taught me more than any win," he said. "It reminded me that ceilings often exist only in our models, not in reality. The room listened carefully. For Filipino athletes, the impact was personal. Confidence replaced hesitation. Aspiration replaced apology. They trained knowing they belonged, not as underdogs, but as contenders. Marco continued competing, but his legacy extended beyond medals. He became proof. Proof that preparation can outmaneuver power, that intelligence can neutralize mass. That belief, when backed by work, becomes force. The Olympics moved on, as they always do. New stars emerged. Records fell. But one final remained etched in memory, not for dominance, but for defiance. When young athletes asked Marco what mattered most, he answered simply, "Know yourself," he said, "then build around it." It wasn't a slogan. It was strategy. Somewhere, another coach paused before dismissing a smaller athlete. Somewhere, another young competitor kept training instead of quitting. These shifts rarely make headlines, but they change futures. This wasn't a story about proving someone wrong. It was about proving something right. That greatness isn't measured in inches alone. The world didn't stop believing in size, but it stopped believing size was everything. And that distinction changed the game. In the end, the finals didn't shock the world because a Filipino athlete won. They shocked it because an old assumption lost. And once that happened, nothing looked the same again.